in here and I have my altered book that I've been using as a collage book. There is a bits of paint in here, but it's mainly collage. And it's pretty much just using up my scraps from other projects and just having fun and gluing bits down. So I'm going to catch you up on a little bit of work that I'm doing in it, how I play in it, and then give you a tour at the end. So I have this tub, little box that I put all my small bits in, things that are too interesting to throw away, but also pretty small pieces that may or may not work for other collage. And so that is getting pretty full, as you could see, and so it's time for me to sit down and have a little collage party to use up some of those papers. So you could say the first reason to do this is as a home for those special little paper bits that I can't otherwise part with. I have a whole stack of these little orange kind of circular rectangle shapes left over that I didn't use on in an art piece. I think they were going to cut them to be tree branches, but then went a different direction. And so now I'm just using those scraps up. I thought they'd be perfect to make little radiating circles from this partially done collage I have going here. I often work by bits and pieces. So like I had glued down that circle piece sometime previously. I think it was maybe out of something that I did on the left hand side, and I just liked the shape, so I stuck it down, and then now here I am however long adding to it with these other shapes. And so I love the serendipity of that, just how even without a lot of forethought and planning, just by what shapes come up available, they seem to fit together and some interesting collages can be made. This is a book of collage experiments. It's a good way to look at it because I'm just taking bits and kind of seeing what I like, what works together, what kind of shapes I like, what kind of compositions I like, what works appealing together. And then this can give me ideas as launching places for pieces of abstract collage artwork. So that's the next benefit of having this little altered book full of collage bits. I'm not worried about these papers hanging over the edge of the page because those will be easy to trim off later. The third benefit of doing something like this is that it's just kind of a creative block breaker, or kind of refreshes me when I want to make something. I want to keep making, keep those creative muscles in use, but I don't want to have to do a lot of thinking or composing. And so I can just pull out this little tub of scraps and have a heyday just gluing them down without much thought. Now I'm just looking for what page I want to work on next. This page is the next one, and it is covered with paint and beginnings of a collage. But that's not what's capturing me right now, so it's kind of fun to have all these in progress pieces because I can kind of look through and see what suits my next little bits of scraps that I've pulled out. In this case, I have some black and white leftovers and in these squares, and so I kind of want to stick those somewhere, do something with them. I really have a hard time throwing away any like little special bits of paper, so this gives me a really nice thing to do with them. Ideally I'm saving them. They're going to become part of art pieces, and a lot of them do end up in art pieces, but I always end up with an accumulation of leftovers that tends to grow, and so it's when that little tub of little pieces gets too full, then I turn to this, making little collage projects like in this book. I almost exclusively use a glue stick to stick papers down in this little book. I'm not too worried about how well they stick. The glue stick does a fine job. Sometimes I do use the matte gel medium if I'm working beside a art collage piece, and sometimes I do that where I'm collaging on a piece of art and I just have this handy to stick my little scraps into right then and there. But today I'm just working out of my tub and have my glue stick and my tub of scraps, and that's all I need. Conceptually, I also just really like the idea of things, rather than these being trash, they can combine together with other little bits of trash and make beautiful things. So I really love the idea of that, and it's, I think, part of what makes it very soothing to me to do this. If only we could operate more that way as people. Those are the kinds of things I can contemplate as I work on gluing these little pieces in. Does not take all my brain power to glue down these pieces, so lets my mind wander and engage with what I'm doing, and I just really relish that whole process. It's very peaceful to me. Especially working with these squares, there's, only so many ways they can be arranged together, so there's not a lot of work involved, I guess, in doing these. Just choosing the placement of each little scrap. However, sometimes my pieces are much more complex, like this little strip that I had cut some foliage out of at some point. So it's a little trickier to get stuck down and to deal with. But these negative spaces also can be a really fun little element in and of themselves. They are a little extra challenge to get glued down though, and trying to get all of those little flaps and little bits stuck requires a little effort. But I do think the organic bits provide a nice contrast to the more geometric pieces that I tend to have on this page, like all these squares. It's nice to break those up with a little bit of organic shapes here, just for the sake of contrast. Totally shifting gears here with some color. These are a little bit more irregular, or at least part of them, scraps, and I'm just, instead of cutting them down, I'm just using them as is, and just kind of like a super simple jigsaw puzzle, just filling in all the spaces with paper bits. The main criteria I'm using to sort my papers is just by color scheme. As you probably can see, I use a variety of papers. I get papers from magazine pages. I especially love ones with bits of font on it. I usually try to cut them or disguise them so that it's not about reading what the words say, it's about just the graphic quality of the font itself. And I also use bits of painted papers, scrapbook papers, junk mail, books, old books that have been discarded. I take pages and sections out of those. Anything that kind of catches my eye and is interesting. Some of my papers have been magazine pages altered with Citrusol. Some of them I paint on. Some of them are printouts of other papers that I have made. So, for example, if I would take a photo or a scan of this collage, print it out, then I could use that paper in additional collages. So sometimes it just goes on and on. Here I have a Monopoly, a little bits of Monopoly money, any kind of little scraps that have anything interesting. There's a car cut out of a magazine. I often don't use as many images as I do just patterns and colors, but I do occasionally include some cars in there. I thought the car fit in nicely with the Monopoly money, so I did include that in there. But all kinds of things are fair game to enter into a collage piece. Sometimes I also do some layering, like this piece with the circles cut out of it. Just adds a little bit of extra interest. But I think for the most part, I'm calling these pages done. They were fun to do. A whole nother style of collage where you just fill the area. This page has a little bit more Rex Ray style inspiration, where I cut out these kind of retro shapes, or at least they feel retro to me. These little kind of hills, I call them. But I really love to use both the negative and positive space. So here at the bottom, I'm putting the little piece that the hills were cut from, and then I will add the hills into the piece too, and I just think that makes a nice echo effect. I don't know if you can hear the rain in the background, but I live in a metal building and the rain is really loud when it rains, and we're having quite the rain today. Been doing a puzzle earlier, and these pieces are a lot like doing a jigsaw puzzle, only where there's not a right picture to refer to. It's about how you want to arrange the pieces. Here's my final composition on this one. I think I kind of like it. I might use that one again. Now I'm turning to a page that I painted previously and just prepped it with some acrylic paint, which is easy to glue over. This is a comic book page that's had some circles punched out of it, again for some other project. I was needing those circles, and this is just the leftover, so I'm using those bits. This is an old Dagwood and Blondie comic book, and I really love these old vintage books. They have very matte, cheap paper. The colors are very unique, and I just love the graphic quality you end up with using these little bits. So I make the most of those. I always save my little comic book bits whenever I use those for collage, and save them for just the right little touches in something, and in this case they're becoming the collage element on their own. I've had a good play, and now I'm going to give you a tour. This is not finished. I often wait till I finish a sketchbook to give a tour, but this, for one thing, has a lot of pages, and for another thing, I work in it sporadically, so it'll be a while. I do have that I began it in June 2025, so it hasn't been real long at this point that I've been working in it. So let's just do a quick little tour. I put this little envelope in here to hold some of my bits that are in waiting. This is a book that I prepped some years ago, and so it's got some pages that you can, it's evident, the original book is evident. Some, like this one, had been covered up, so a whole variety here. I did keep the table of contents in case I want to like name my pieces or some of the special ones that I want to refer back to. Not sure if how I'll use that yet. I did keep this copyright date of the original book was 1934, so I think that's kind of fun. But now I'll just flip through what I've been working on. And this is a great little exercise for kind of seeing what kind of shapes I like, how I like those shapes to work in conjunction with each other. Pages are hard to turn. You know, what kind of balance or colors to achieve. This is a loose scrap that I'm thinking of sticking in here because it's pretty. This is a fun page. These were all left over from another project, so I just stuck them in here. Lots of pages I build in stages, so they'll be, like I will probably add more to this as time passes. Come back to it again and again. Others I kind of used where the words, where the text was, is to create kind of a block to go by. Kind of a format for me in these collages. This one I did end up doing a piece of art, you know, a large wall art piece kind of based on this idea. These are kind of Rex Ray influenced, who is one of my favorite collage artists. I also really like these that, again, kind of follow that text box shape. Some blank pages. There's some more back here. Here's one. I had painted this page, prepped it with paint some time ago. Added the collage. Pages is prepped and ready for some collage. These are all blank. Getting more sparse back here. Further we go in the book. This one. This one I put gesso on the page to prep it, but you can still see some of the text peeking through. I like this one. I like the colors and the whole scheme of it. I think that I could replicate that as a larger scale as an art piece, and I would be quite happy with it. I think that's it. Okay, well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.